to thank you for coming today. We are going to be talking to Jennifer Harrison. Jennifer Harrison is the coordinator of the ARC's Taking Action Against Sexual Violence program. She spent her early career in nonprofit writing and editing, then later in independent filmmaking. She has since gotten her master's in criminal justice from Boston University, focusing on reentry services and alternative programming. Today, we're going to be talking all about consent. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for doing this. If anybody has any questions during the webinar, you can place them in the chat box or in the Q&A box. We will be monitoring that throughout. And again, thank you so much for being here. And I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Great. Thank you, Erin. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. As Erin explained, I'm Jennifer Harrison, and I'm the coordinator of the Sexual Violence Prevention Program here at the ARC of New Jersey. It is a new program, new project, and so we are just trying to make sure that everyone is educated about how to keep themselves safe and healthy. Which is what brings us to consent. You are going to hear that word a lot today, but if you learn nothing else, that is the thing you want to learn. It is the most important. There may be some overlap in what I say, but the more you hear about it and the more you practice, the easier it gets. It'll become second nature. But we also want you to have fun. So that's one of the most important things. We're going to go through consent letter by letter to explain what it's about. First, I just want to give a trigger warning. We're going to be talking about consent and a little bit about sexual violence. If anyone, I recognize that you all bring with you your own histories and your own feelings. So if anything becomes emotional or you need to take a break, please feel free. This video is going to be archived, so you can always come back to it when you feel like doing so. And as Erin said, you're all going to be muted, but if there are any questions or if I haven't asked a question and you want to answer it, you'll see down here. You can hit the chat, or there might be a Q&A box and you can just type it in and we'll see it. So that is good. We're going to start with just some words that you should know before we start so they're familiar. One is sexual violence, which is also known as sexual assault. Although they are different for our purposes today, they can go hand in hand. It occurs when someone forces or manipulates, meaning making them feel bad or guilty or any other way of making them feel like they're not allowed to say no to something. It's when they manipulate someone else into unwanted sexual activity, and I underlined without their consent, which brings us back to consent. We're going to learn what that is very soon. This can include inappropriate touching, coerced nudity, meaning someone asking you to share pictures or videos or do something in person. Sexual harassment, meaning sexual words or pictures, as well as rape. Sexual abuse is very similar to sexual assault, except it's repeated. So it's something ongoing over the course of days or months or weeks or years. Now, consent, you will know, is an agreement between people to engage in sexual activity, or really in any activity. If you want to hold someone's hand, you should get their consent, meaning they should want to hold hands, you should want to hold hands, and you should agree together and out loud and clearly that you both want that. They both have to want to participate, and they have to let each other know they want to. We will talk about how if you are quiet or you shrug or you just let them do it, that is not a yes. That's not consent. A consent is yes, or a thumbs up, or a nod, or an okay, whatever it is. You want the other person to know that it is absolutely a yes. Non-consent is saying no or simply not giving consent. So being silent is non-consent. Shrugging, non-consent. Coercion or coerce means to convince someone. It's making someone do something that they don't want to do by forcing them or threatening them or making them feel guilty. It's a form of manipulation, like we talked about before. And it is not right. And if someone winds up saying yes because they were coerced, it is still not consent. Your consent has to be because you wanted to give it, not because someone made you. And finally, violate. It just means to fail to respect. It's to do something even when someone asks you not to. So those are the words you can, if you have a camera on your phone and you want to take a picture, so you always know these words, that's fine. Or you can go back to it when we archive it and find out what they are again. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat and we will see them. So, what is consent? Here's where the overlap comes in because I'm going to keep repeating the important parts. It is permission for something to happen or agreement to do something. So sexual consent means both people know what the sexual behavior involves. If you don't understand what you're agreeing to, if you don't know what it's going to look like or be like, then it's not consent. You have to already know. And you can ask, that's fine. But once you find out, that's when you can say yes, if you still want to. Both people are able to decide that they want to participate in the behavior. So nobody is drunk, nobody is asleep, and both parties can communicate. So if somebody is nonverbal or they can't let you know that there is a big happy yes, then there cannot be consent. Both people have to understand how they feel about the behavior. So you have to not only understand what it is, but you want to think about it. What is that going to be like? What does that mean in my life? And only then can you consent. In New Jersey, both people have to be age 16 or older. If somebody is younger than 16, they cannot consent. And both people can identify when a situation may be harmful. So again, it's knowing your partner, it's understanding what's going to go on, and it's trusting that that person will be kind to you. Now, if all of those things are there, now you are able to consent. So does anyone know what an acrostic poem is? It is when there is a word that goes down, but each of the letters stands for something. So consent is more than just a word. It means change. Only you get to decide if you consent. No, we will talk about no. Stranger danger is not the problem in this case. Enthusiastic yes. That is sort of what I was just talking about, and we'll talk about that more. Never let someone try to coerce you. And the T stands for tell someone if your non-consent has been ignored or violated, meaning after you have said no or stayed silent or shrugged, if somebody goes ahead and does the behavior that you did not want them to, you get yourself away from them and you tell somebody you trust. Okay, this is good not only for your health and safety, but for the other person's. They need to consent. And if they shrug or they're asleep or they say, I don't know, I guess, or they feel guilty that you paid for the movie, that is not consent. Okay, so the C in consent is you can change your mind at any point. That is, if you say hi to someone and decide to go out, and then you decide, I changed my mind, that is fine. If you are already kissing them and you decide you want to stop, you are allowed to stop. Even if it's their birthday, even if sexual activity is already happening, and you decide at some point, I do not want to be doing this, you are allowed to stop. Also, if you have had sexual activity before, even if it was 100 times, you are allowed to say, no, I don't want to this time. You can always say no. It is never too late. And if someone says it's too late, they are not telling the truth or they don't know any better. If they are a special kind of friend, a boyfriend, girlfriend, or they friend, you can still say no. You can like or love someone and still not want to touch or be touched by them. That's important. Not everybody wants that, and not everybody wants that all the time. And that is 100% natural and normal. Even if you think you want to do something sexual and then realize I don't like this, or I changed my mind, or I remember that my faith tells me that I shouldn't be doing it, it's okay to say, I no longer want to do this. You have the right to say no. And here's something really important, and I want you to get used to saying this. My body, my rules. So if someone says, well, I do it, or everyone does it, or you should do it, no, this is about my body, and I decide what I want and what I don't want. And there is no instance when you have to continue at all. So the O in consent is only you get to decide if you want to do anything sexual. Nobody can tell you. So there are some examples of coercion here. And these examples are people who are persistent. They keep asking, even after you say no. It's come on, just try it. Let's do it just once. Just give it a shot. Please, please. It doesn't matter how many times they ask. No means no. Your body, your rules. So if someone is persistent, doesn't matter. They're wasting their time. Manipulating. Look at the woman in this picture. She's scheming. She's coming up with different ways to get you to say yes. She's saying, wow, I don't know. I bought you dinner. I feel like you owe me. Or, well, you said you would do it. So I guess that means you have to. Or we already started. So now you have to. That is coercion. Threatening. I'm going to stop liking you. I'm going to stop loving you. I'm going to stop spending time with you if you don't agree. Or if someone says, I won't help you get into your wheelchair, or I won't give you your phone that you need. Those are threats, and that is coercion. It is not okay. Or if they say, this is a good one, then I'll find someone who will do it. You know what? Go ahead, because hopefully that person will consent because they'll want to. There are always people out there who will accept your consent or your non-consent. So there's no need to waste your time with people who won't. They're not respectful people. Pouting. Oh, they try to make you feel guilty for not doing what they want. You must not like me. You must think I'm dumb. I feel rejected and it's because of you. No, they're trying to get you to say yes, and it shouldn't work. Sometimes people get angry and say mean things, or they plead, they whine. I asked you nicely, do it for me. None of these should work. So if we had a second C, it would be for coercion and not listening to coercion. Okay, the N in consent. It's such an important word. It's no. And there are so many ways to communicate no, meaning to let the other person that you mean it. It's not important that you use the word. What you want to do is use assertive communication, meaning it's loud enough that they can hear it without yelling. You don't have to get angry. You're giving eye contact so they know you're talking to them and you are speaking in a firm way. So there is no question what they mean. Have you ever asked, hey, can I go out? I know it's midnight, but I feel like going out. It's the kind of tone that you get the no for in, right? So it's no. I said no. Absolutely not. So here are some tips on turning down sex if someone is trying to convince you to. You be confident and know what you want and speak in this assertive tone. This means thinking through why you want to wait before you're in a sexual situation. So really come to know what you believe, what your values are, what speaks to you, and how you want to behave. And if that includes sex, that's great, but it has to be what you are comfortable with. Um, Say no, like I just said. You don't owe anyone, even someone you love, an explanation for why you don't want to do this. It's a very personal decision. It's a very big decision. You can explain if you want, but you in no way have to. Tell them what you do want to do, like kissing is great. I'll hold your hand. I'll sit on your lap. I can even cuddle, but I don't want to do whatever it is you don't want to do. Be clear and direct. That's another way of saying assertive communication. Look them in the eyes and use a serious tone of voice. Like, I'm not kidding. I said no. And you can also let them know that you really do like or love them. That's okay. You can tell them how much they mean to you. It doesn't affect the fact that you don't want to have sex. And someone who loves you back will accept that and understand. So, like we said, you can say no to one thing and yes to another. And that's okay too. It's not, nope, we can't talk to each other. We can't ever see each other again. Or yes, let's go get married. There are a lot of things you can say yes to and other things you can say no to. Like, I know we had sex before, but I just don't want to do that today. Perfectly reasonable. I'll kiss you, but I don't want you to touch me in some areas. And then there's, how about you come over and we can decide what we're comfortable with together? Because consent, right? It's agreement, and you have to know what they're willing to do and what they don't want to do. And you can ask them to bring cookies. They don't have to consent, but you're very lucky if they do. I always like when people show up like that. Here is a wheel, why you might say no. There are a million reasons to say no, so I just came up with a few. You're not ready. You're not in love. You're not interested in sex. Some people are never interested in sex. They go their whole lives. It is perfectly normal. It's like anything else. It works for you or it doesn't. You may have faith-based or moral beliefs. So your religion or your culture or your parents raised you believing something, and that becomes part of you, and it becomes part of how you make decisions. You might be too tired. That's okay. You just ate a big meal. You can tell them that. That's my reason. Your skin is sensitive. You'd rather watch TV. You're holding out for Harry Styles. Might be a long wait, but it's a good excuse. Or because I said so. No means no, right? My body, my choice. You just want to be clear about it, whatever it is, or don't give a reason, don't give an excuse. Just, I understand you're disappointed, but not today. It's not going to happen. Again, if you have any questions or if I'm going too quickly, please let me know. Now, just like someone, oop, I'm so sorry. I just went past this. I am going to end the show and I'm going to go back and start again because I don't want to miss that. Ha. Just like someone must accept your no when you say no, you have to accept it from others. Okay. Even if you're disappointed, even if it makes you feel rejected, if it makes you feel like they don't like you, I can pretty much promise that's not the reason. But yes, it can feel bad. It can feel difficult. So it's good to practice with your caregiver or with friends. Literally sit and face each other and practice rejecting each other. Practice saying no. And the other person should practice accepting it by saying, as our man on the left says, okay, or no problem, or I totally understand, although this group of people understands. But it's very good to get in the habit of saying, that's okay, I get it. And today's not the day, and that's fine. Let's watch a movie, or maybe we can still hang out, something like that. But you should accept someone's non-consent the way you want them to accept your non-consent, not with anger, not with pleading or asking over and over and over again, but just accepting it kindly. And I wrote here, it's also their body, their choice, so they can say no to you. The S in consent. It's not only strangers who commit sexual violence. Now, this is not a great thing to think about, but it is the truth. And that is, there are reports that people with intellectual disabilities are even more likely to be sexually assaulted or experience sexual violence more than by someone they know. So for women without disabilities, the person who commits the assault is a stranger 24% of the time, meaning if 4 people come up to you, one of them is someone you know. But for a woman with intellectual disability, it's less than 14% of the time, meaning it's usually someone they already know. So, of more than 500 cases of suspected abuse of women with IDD in 2016, suspected offenders were others with intellectual disabilities 42% of the time, almost half the time. It was someone else with an intellectual disability. This tells me that if we all learn about consent and if we all learn my body, my rules, that would go down tremendously because people would understand I'm allowed to say no and you're allowed to say no. And we each need to accept that. Staff is 14%, relatives 12%, and friends 11%. So these are not great statistics, but we have to look at them, and we can't ignore it. So we have to know our rights, and that is if you consent and someone goes on, that is against the law. And you tell someone, an adult that you trust. I'm right now writing a home sex ed curriculum, and I talk a lot about your trusted adult, and that's the person you really feel like you can talk to, who looks out for your safety and in your best interests. And those are the people you go to. And if for some reason they're not there or they don't quite understand what you're saying, you go to another trusted adult. And you continue to do that until somebody listens and believes, because these are your rights. It's funny, we hear so much about stranger danger, maybe because it rhymes, but we have to keep our eyes open for everybody. So, how do I stay safe from potential sexual violence by someone I know? Very good question. Well, learn the parts of your bodies. This will be in the home sex ed curriculum as well. Understand what is never to be touched by someone else and what is okay to be touched. There are private parts and public parts. So the things that your bathing suit covers, I think we've all worn a bathing suit. The parts that you're sure to cover with your bathing suit, those are private parts. Those are not to show to anyone else, even if they ask. That is not for anyone to touch. And that is where you don't look at someone or touch them. This is without consent. Know your boundaries. What is a boundary? A boundary is like a fence. Okay. Some people don't like having their wrists touched. My daughter does not like when people take her by the wrist. And so it's like she has a boundary around it. It's like there's a little bubble around it. And she says, you don't go into that bubble and you don't touch this part. Know your boundaries. And it's not always just about body parts, it's about things you don't want to hear, words you don't want to hear, like during sex or about sex, or things you don't want to see. I don't want to see a picture of a person without their clothes on. These are boundaries. And you can tell other people your boundaries, and they can tell you. So, what do we do if they tell us? We practice what we say when we get non consent. We say, okay, that's fine. I understand. You want to exercise your consent and your non consent. How best to make sure that you are not put in a sexual situation? Well, letting someone know that you don't want to be in a sexual situation will very often stop it from happening because the other person might not know about consent. Not everyone has learned about this yet. So you can be the one to teach them and say, I'm allowed to say no. And guess what? So are you. That will keep you from doing something that you shouldn't, and it'll keep them from doing it too. And everyone will remain safe and happy. You want to be clear and firm when you do not want or like something. That's our assertive voice. You don't want to think in your head, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this. I wish they would figure that out. Or, sort of wincing. And if they say is anything wrong, nope, I'm fine. That doesn't let them know that you are not giving consent. If you don't like something, you tell them, you know what? I don't like this. I'd like it to stop. Or I don't want to do this anymore. Very plainly, kindly, but firmly. Know the people you will be alone with. So this is where maybe stranger danger does come into play a little bit, but sometimes they're not strangers. If there's someone who makes you feel uncomfortable, or they don't really respect your boundaries, or they're not always kind, or they don't always care what you like or you don't like, these are people you might not want to be alone with if you can help it. So if there's someone, say, at work or someone you know from the neighborhood who says, come on, let's go hang out in my room. But they're always doing things like pushing you down or tickling you when you don't like it, or they laugh when you get hurt. You might want to say, I don't consent to being alone with you. I don't want to go. Um, and that way you trust your feelings because your body knows when it's uncomfortable and we have to listen to it. And keep communicating with people you do trust. So here comes that trusted adult again. Keep the talk going. Let them know what's going on in your life. Let them know about your friends or maybe someone you're in a romantic relationship with, or someone you have been sexual with or want to be sexual with. Just keep your trusted adult sort of, they call it in the loop. So letting them know who you spend time with and what that time is like, because they can often see things that we can't. I'm always asking for a second opinion on things because sometimes things get by us. So you check in with someone who's looking out for your happiness. Consent. The E is enthusiastic yes. I don't know if anyone knows what enthusiasm is or being enthusiastic. It means you really, really want to do it. If you are going to the grocery store, you might not be that enthusiastic. You'll go, but you don't really want to. If you're going to a concert, yeah, you want to go. And if someone asks you, you're going to say, yes, absolutely. Thumbs up, smiling, eye contact. This is something I want to do. That's an enthusiastic yes. And you want to bring that into the sexual situations too, so that when you're giving consent, it is with an enthusiastic, big, happy yes, or thumbs up, or smile, or leaning in. But it's not enough just not to say no. Well, she didn't say no, so she must mean yes. Not true. You actually need an active yes. That includes making eye contact. If you can, you say the word yes, or other forms of the word. What other things can we say? Definitely, or uh-huh, or you got it. You want to smile because that lets people know that you're happy, right? If someone ever says to you, yeah, that sounds good, and they're averting their eyes and they're not looking at you and they don't look happy, they're frowning, it's not an enthusiastic yes. And so it's not consent. Nodding, thumbs up, always good because you can't mistake up and down. So keep a lookout for that and use it. Now, consent, the N means never let someone try to change your mind. Remember when we learned the word coercion earlier? It's someone trying to find a way to get you to say yes, however it is, make you feel bad, make you scared, tell you something that's not true. It means someone making you do something that you don't want to do by forcing or threatening you or manipulating. So we're going to watch a quick video about coercion and what that looks like. Boy, I hope this works. Let's see.
Consent is a voluntary agreement to engage in sexual activity. That means if someone is consenting, they're saying yes because they want to say yes. But if someone is forced or manipulated into doing something they don't want to do, that's not consent. That's coercion. Lots of times, when people picture someone being forced into sexual activity, they imagine someone being physically forced or physically injured. And that absolutely does happen. But what's actually more common and what people don't always think of are non-physical types of force. Non-physical coercion can look like pressure, asking over and over and over again until someone gives in. Or like guilt, making someone feel bad for saying no. Or like threats, like someone saying or suggesting that there will be consequences for refusing. Coercion can be really overwhelming and confusing for the person experiencing it. People might end up giving in or going along with something that makes them really uncomfortable because that other person is making it really difficult to do anything else. They might blame themselves or worry that other people will blame them for not saying no better. Sometimes people who have been coerced wonder if they did consent because eventually they went along with it, even though they never wanted to. If anyone is ever put into a situation where they feel like they had to go along with something that they were uncomfortable with, they are never, ever to blame. Someone giving in or going along with sexual activity after they've been coerced is not the same as them giving voluntary consent. The only person responsible for them being in that position is the person who is using pressure, guilt, or threats to manipulate them. Anytime someone wants to have sexual contact with someone else, it's their job to make sure that their partner is voluntarily consenting. And if that person trying to initiate sexual activity ever feels that they're working really hard to get someone to say yes, or that they're trying to convince that person, then they have to stop, because that's coercion.
So that is coercion, and we have to really look out for that and make sure that we don't do it. Um, If you are disappointed, that absolutely makes sense. If you feel rejected, or you think they really, really do want to do it, they just don't know they want to do it, it doesn't matter. Non-consent is non-consent. The T in consent is tell someone if you have experienced sexual violence. Now, this can feel very personal. It might be scary to talk about, or you feel like you might get in trouble. Let's say you were drinking or you were doing something that was against the rules. That's okay. It's more important that you tell someone. And if you do wind up reporting it to the police, you cannot get in trouble for having done something like drinking. The statistic is only 3% of sexual abuses involving people with developmental disabilities are ever reported. So if there were 100 people who all experienced this kind of violence, only 3 people would actually report it. And if you get some time, you can take some Skittles or sugar cubes or whatever you have and count out 100 and then remove just 3, and you'll see how small an amount that is. It is totally up to you if you report any kind of sexual violence. You do not have to at all. And it's a very personal decision. It's also something that you can take your time to figure out. In New Jersey, there is no time limit. It's not like you have 6 days, and if not, then you can never report it. That's not how it is. If you decide down the line, after you haven't reported it, that, yeah, I changed my mind, I want to, you can march yourself into a police station and tell, and they will listen to you. But if you do decide to, reporting the assault or abuse, which is, right, continued assault that goes on over and over again, it can actually help you recover. A lot of people feel bad for a while after there's been sexual violence. You can feel sad or angry, or you don't want to think about it, but you find yourself jumpy. You're frightened a lot. There can be some bad feelings, and of course that will go away, but it will really go away if you get help. And one of these types of help is actually reporting it and feeling like, you know what, I took control, and now my word counts. You can also look into therapists. On our Sexual Violence Prevention Project webpage that is coming up, it's not up yet. We are going to have a big list of resources of places that you can call any time of day or not, night, any day of the week. And you can get help, and it's free. So you don't have to worry about how much it costs. So there's a lot of help out there. Reporting assault or abuse can prevent the person from hurting someone else. And we don't really think about that often, but it's like, it's not only good for you, it's good for the other people that that person will be near, because they won't be free to do that. So it helps you and it helps others. At the same time, if it's not right for you, or if it's not right for you right now, then you don't have to. You give your non-consent to doing it. Now, who to call if your consent has been ignored or violated? These are some of the sites that are going to be up on our webpage. So you can call 911 if it's an emergency. I don't know if you know that number, but if ever there's a fire, right, you call 911. And the same thing goes if there has been sexual violence. As soon as you can be away from that person, you can call 911, and either an ambulance or the police will come. Sounds scary. They're all there to help you. The more you get to know your local medical EMTs or the police, the more comfortable you'll be calling them if you ever need them. There's a national sexual assault hotline. It's 800-656-HOPE. So those are the numbers 4673. They spell out HOPE when you look at the numbers. There's the National Disability Rights Network, which is www.ndrn.org. You can call them, or you can call your local police or go to the station. But most important, your trusted adult. That is what they're there for. There is also the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, nsvrc.org, and they have a tremendous amount of different resources and numbers and ways to get help. So remember, this is as important as consent to walk away with. It is never your fault if somebody ignores or violates your non-consent. If you violate someone else's non-consent, if they shrug or say no or stay silent and you do it anyway, that is not their fault. It is the fault of the person doing it. The same goes for you. If someone does something to you, even if you have stayed quiet, even if you haven't said no, even if you didn't push them away, it doesn't matter. That is not your fault because they were supposed to get your consent, enthusiastic consent, in order to do it. So this guy is standing, looking out, saying our new favorite phrase, my body, my rules. And I'm so glad you came. Does anybody have any questions or any comments? I'm very happy to answer anything you might be wondering or listen to any stories you might have. I'll just keep my eye out. I don't know if I'll actually see the chat. Let's see. Yeah, there's nothing there. Oh, I see a question. Ah, he said yes. Okay, Brian, do you have a question? Let's see. Don't break the rules. That's actually true. Especially with something like this. If you're, if consent, there you go, Brian. That's what it was. Brian had said, don't break rules. And that's true, especially with consent. And that's more about accepting someone else's. So if somebody says, I don't want to, don't break the rule of consent. You want to accept it kindly and let them know that it's okay. Any other questions or comments? There are no open questions. Let's see, just looking. Oh. Follow rules, exactly. I see there may be another question. Let's see.
And if anyone has any questions that they think of after the webinar, you can always email us and we can send it over to Jennifer if we don't know the answer. So don't feel like you have to think of your questions now, but if something pops up later, we can send them over as well.
Well, let's see. No, if anyone has any more questions or they don't, then we can say goodbye and thank you. And I thank you so much for coming. It would be great if you revisit this and remember the lesson of consent and practice giving and getting consent and non-consent, maybe with your caregiver or even friends. It's kind of a fun exercise. Okay, and there's a Stay Healthy at Home webinar every Tuesday from 2 to 3. You can see that in the chat, that link. So great.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jennifer. This was so informative, and I'm so happy that everybody came. This should be up in the next few days on our website if anybody wants to rewatch it. And again, if you have any questions, just let us know. But Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was fantastic.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Take care, everyone.